What if the fate of an entire civilization changed in just one day? In the year 1066, England stood at a crossroads. Three powerful men claimed the crown, but only one would reshape the destiny of a nation forever. This is the story of betrayal, invasion, and the fall of a kingdom. But it doesn't end at the battlefield. What happened to the Anglo-Saxons after their world collapsed? Did they vanish or survive in the shadows of a new empire? Welcome to Era Hive, where history speaks. In today's episode, we uncover the untold story of the Norman Conquest, the Battle of Hastings, and the forgotten fate of the Anglo-Saxons. Grab your seat in time, because history is about to begin. The fall of Anglo-Saxon England. For over 600 years, the Anglo-Saxons ruled England. They built kingdoms, churches, laws, and forged an identity rooted in honor, kinship, and the sword. By the early 11th century, England was one of the most organized and prosperous realms in Europe. But beneath that strength was a quiet tension. Foreign threats loomed. Viking raids still haunted the coasts. And though the great King Edward the Confessor sat on the throne, his failure to produce an heir would prove catastrophic. England was about to become the prize in a deadly Game of Thrones. The battle for the crown. When King Edward the Confessor died in January 1066, he left no direct heir. The English crown, glittering with power and legacy, suddenly had three bold claimants. First was Harold Godwinson, the powerful Earl of Wessex. Chosen by the Witenagemot, England's Council of Nobles, he was crowned king almost immediately. But across the sea, two others prepared for war. In the north, Harald Hardrada, the fierce king of Norway, claimed the throne through a forgotten Viking pact. And in Normandy, William the Bastard, Duke of Normandy, declared that Edward had promised him the crown years earlier, and that Harold had sworn a sacred oath to support his claim. What followed was a year of ambition, betrayal, and bloodshed. The calm before the storm had ended. Hastings, William versus Harold. September 1066. England was under siege from two sides. First came Harald Hardrada, storming the north with a Viking army. Harold Godwinson raced to meet him, defeating the Norwegians in a brutal clash at Stamford Bridge. Victory was his, but at a cost. Just days later, word came. William of Normandy had landed on England's southern coast. Exhausted but determined, Harold marched his army over 250 miles south to face this second invasion. On October 14th, near the town of Hastings, two worlds collided. Norman cavalry against Anglo-Saxon shield wall. The battle raged for hours. Harold fought bravely, but was struck down, legend says, by an arrow to the eye. His death shattered Saxon morale. By nightfall, England had a new ruler. William the Conqueror had claimed the crown, not by inheritance, but by the sword. England under Norman rule, with Harold dead and the Saxon resistance broken, William the Conqueror marched triumphantly to London. On Christmas Day, 1066, he was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey. But ruling was not the same as conquering. To secure his grip, William unleashed a wave of brutal control. Castles, stone symbols of Norman power, sprouted across the land. Anglo-Saxon nobles were stripped of their lands, replaced by Norman lords fiercely loyal to the king. The English language absorbed Norman French, reshaping speech, law, and culture for centuries. Rebellions flared, but were crushed. The most infamous? The Harrying of the North, a scorched earth campaign so devastating that entire villages vanished, and famine swept the region. William's reign transformed England from a Saxon kingdom to a feudal, French-speaking monarchy. The Saxon Rebellion. Even after William's coronation, England refused to kneel quietly. The Saxons may have lost the crown, but their spirit was far from broken. From 1067 to 1070, pockets of rebellion ignited across the land, especially in the north and west. Former allies of Harold, local lords, and even peasants rose up to push back the Norman grip. The fiercest came in Yorkshire, where the Normans faced uprisings supported by Viking forces from Denmark. William responded with terrifying precision. the infamous harrying of the north. Entire villages were burned, crops destroyed, livestock slaughtered, famine followed. It's estimated that over 100,000 people died. This brutal campaign shattered organized resistance. The Saxon cause, once proud and defiant, had been ground into the ashes, but their legacy wasn't gone, only transformed. Exile and the Varangian Guard. Not all Saxons accepted defeat or death. Some chose exile over submission. Many noblemen, warriors, and their families fled England's shores, seeking a place where their skills and hatred of the Normans might serve a purpose. Their destination? The Byzantine Empire. In Constantinople, the emperor welcomed these fierce, battle-hardened warriors. They joined the elite Varangian Guard, an imperial bodyguard made up largely of Norsemen and now English exiles. These former Saxons became protectors of the Eastern Roman Emperor, wielding their axes not for a king of England, but for the glory of Byzantium. In a strange twist of fate, those who lost their homeland found honor, gold, and glory in a foreign empire, their legacy living on in stone carvings and ancient manuscripts far from English soil. Normans and Saxons merge. Time has a way of turning enemies into neighbors. In the decades after the conquest, the brutal divide between Norman conquerors and Saxon natives slowly began to blur. Intermarriage, land redistribution, and shared survival forged a new blended identity. Norman French and Saxon Old English mingled, giving birth to the English language we know today, filled with the vocabulary of both court and countryside. The feudal system reshaped the land. Castles rose, laws changed, but so did culture. By the 12th century, a new English aristocracy had emerged, descendants of both conqueror and conquered. The pain of 1066 never vanished, but it became woven into England's DNA. From fire and steel came something new, a nation reborn. The legacy of 1066. The year 1066 wasn't just a date. It was a turning point that reshaped England forever. The Norman conquest brought more than a change of rulers. It revolutionized language, law, architecture, and society. The towering stone castles, the centralized monarchy, the feudal order, all trace back to William's victory at Hastings. It also redefined England's place in Europe. No longer a remote island kingdom, it was now deeply tied to continental politics, forever changed by the bloodline of Normandy. And yet, the Saxon spirit lived on, in tales, traditions, and the evolving English identity. A nation that would rise from conquest to become an empire of its own. Even today, echoes of 1066 shape the laws we follow, the words we speak, and the crown that still sits on the throne. It was not the end. It was the beginning of modern England. Conclusion, where the past still echoes. The Norman conquest was more than just a battle. It was the collision of two worlds, the death of one era and the violent birth of another. From the blood-soaked fields of Hastings to the vaulted halls of Norman castles, the echoes of 1066 still shape England's soul. And here on Archive, where history speaks, we bring those echoes back to life. If you found this journey through time captivating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a chapter from the past.